Worf, 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 Worf. Greetings, all you Worfs out there, and Worfcome to Undeclared Bajor.
Have there been a lot of Worfs? There have been two, I guess.
There's that episode where there are a million Worfs.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Anyway, my name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
What up?
Today we're going to discuss and review Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 4, Episode 1 and 2, The Way of the Warrior. Alternate title, Worf, motherfucker.
Okay. I buy it.
It's the start of a new season. Sisko has shaved his head. Worf is here. The show is officially good now, according to conventional wisdom, so we're going to have to step up our game as well. What fun new surprises will pop up on Undeclared Bajor, only time will tell. If we ever come up with any. But as always, you can expect full spoilers up through the episode being discussed, and a possible small number of spoilers for later in the series kept to an appropriate minimum. And maybe a fake spoiler or two, but not today. I'm sending that bit into semi-retirement.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh.
There's a saying in writing that you have to kill your darlings. I'm not quite ready to kill that darling, but I am going to lock it in its room for a while.
Wow.
But I'll treat it very nicely. Don't worry. The Way of the Warrior originally aired October 2nd, 1995. It was written by, you guessed it, ISB and RHW. And directed by James L. Conway.
Yeah, he's done a couple things that we've had before.
Yeah. I feel like it's a familiar name, but we haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah, he did. The last one he did was Necessary Evil, so that wasn't. I mean, that was. I guess that was season 2. Yeah, okay, that's been a while. But apparently, when he did this episode, he was like up for the job of directing Star Trek First Contact, and so as far as he was concerned, this was like his tryout for that.
Ooh. Wasn't there another episode directed by Jonathan Frakes that you said got him the job?
Yes, and I feel like that was forever ago too. So it may have been like they were looking back at like who's done directing for us, and they're like, oh, that one was really good. I don't know. Yeah, but yeah. James Conway, he's an interesting character. Like I went into his stuff and in IMDb, and his last producer credit was 2006 because he produced the series Charmed, and I was like, is he dead? Like, he hasn't done anything in the last 17 years. But no, he's been directing some since then. Like he directed 8 episodes of The Magicians as his most recent thing. But apparently, from 1996 to 2002, he was executive vice president of Spelling Television, which had him working on shows like Seventh Heaven, Melrose Place, and Beverly Hills 90210.
Huh. So it sounds like he's doing pretty good for himself.
Yeah. More recently, he started writing novels in 2012. And he has like 2 in 2012 and 1 in 2013, and that's when this list stops. So it seems like maybe that didn't go that well for him. But these novel names are interesting. It says Dead and Not So Buried, and then Sexy Babe, which that's okay, it's a little generic, and then In Cold Blonde.
Ooh,
which sounds like the kind of pun that you would use for an episode title.
So Dead and Not So Buried sounds like a vampire story or something.
Could be, I guess.
What's it called? Stone Cold Blonde?
It is In Cold Blonde.
In Cold Blonde. So I guess that could be like a sort of a hard-boiled detective novel or something.
Okay, so yeah, now I'm gonna look up. So I looked up Dead and Not So Buried. In parentheses, Gideon Kincaid Hollywood thrillers. So it sounds like that these are a series of Hollywood thrillers. So let's see. Hollywood is rocked after the remains of one of the most idolized movie stars of the 60s are stolen. The thief chooses Gideon Kincaid to deliver the ransom, forcing the PI and ex-cop to unravel a master plan that will include extortion, blackmail, and murder.
Ooh. So are these all Gideon Kincaid novels then?
I guess probably. I'm looking. First, there's the tough as nails cop assigned to the case, Gideon's bitter ex-wife. Then there's the gorgeous starlet he must protect. Unfortunately, they have a history that puts her in jeopardy. Finally, there's Gideon's assistant, the adorable and adoring Hillary.
So it sounds like all the tropes are in play.
Yep.
In the world of Gideon Kincaid. Is James L. Conway related to the mathematician John Conway?
Not that it mentions.
Inventor of the Game of Life. Not the board Game of Life, but the cellular automaton.
Oh, I thought you meant the board game. I was like, all right, no. He's a mathematician and a board game guy. Okay.
Yeah. He, just look up Conway's Game of Life. I'm not going to explain the whole thing.
Okay.
Or just look up some interviews with him. He's an interesting guy. Anyway, back to this episode.
Before we get into the episode, there's some interesting background here.
Okay.
So we talked about last time how they had this big plan for like a cliffhanger finale for the last season. And then the studio was like, no, you're not doing that. And so they had to change it up some. But during the break, apparently at the end of season 3, like ratings had started to fall. And so the studio was like, look, you're going to have to do, it says, falling ratings had led to the studio giving the producers a mandate to do, quote unquote, something to shake up the series. So over the summer, they're like, oh, we have to shake up the series. What are we going to do? And the idea that they started working on was that Vulcan was going to leave the Federation.
Huh.
And so they're working towards this for a while. And I guess the idea was the Dominion had something to do with that too. It doesn't really specify. And then they start talking about like, oh, we had that line that like the Klingons and the Federation are the only threat left in the Alpha Quadrant to the Dominion. Maybe we should do something with that. And so, according to this, Ira Stephen Bear goes to Ronald D. Moore and he's like, maybe we're making a mistake. Maybe the Vulcans shouldn't be the ones leaving the Federation. Maybe the Klingons should break off diplomatic relations, and that would bring more heat. And then Ronald D. Moore was like, well, I thought that was a great idea. It was cool and interesting. And apparently a lot of people on staff and off felt that the Next Generation's depiction of the Klingons as allies had like kind of turned them lame, as opposed to when they were in the original series and they were like this cool enemy to, like a really intimidating enemy or whatever. So they were like, well, this is great. Yeah, we can go back to like that old way of looking at them.
Huh.
Completely ignoring stuff like, the Organian Peace Treaty, but I think they ignored that in the original series also, so whatever.
Yeah, so
that sets the stage for coming into this episode.
Right. Does it pay off? And also, let's throw Worf in there.
Yeah. That'll shake it up.
Yeah. I was just thinking it's like, because remember they added the Defiant because they felt that having a starship would get them better ratings somehow, based on the logic that Next Generation had better ratings because it had a starship. So now it's like, what else did Next Generation have? Worf? Throw him in there.
But yeah, and there's several things in here about like introducing Worf for people just like, some people thought this was a good idea. Some people, like the cast, for instance, was kind of wary, like, oh, we're going to bring in like this new guy who's going to take attention away from everybody else.
But yeah, so getting into this episode, in memory of Greg Duffy Long and Ronald W. Smith, I don't know who those people are, but...
Oh, no, now we're going to have to find out. Hold on.
I assumed you would have that fact at the ready.
I saw the thing that was like, this episode was in memory of these two guys, and I was like, I should probably look at them later, and then I forgot until... So let's see. Greg Duffy Long was the assistant to Renee Echevarria and Robert Hewitt Wolf when they worked on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He died of complications from AIDS in 1995. And then...
That's rough.
Yeah, I know, right? And then Ronald W. Smith was a hairdresser who worked on the early seasons of Deep Space Nine. After his death, the 4th season episode was dedicated to his memory. Yeah. Any other details in here?
Did he also die of AIDS?
Smith was discovered by Duke Ellington and would work for other stars like Nat King Cole, Ike and Tina Turner, Marvin Gaye, Count Basie, and Sugar Ray Robinson.
Wow.
Before doing Star Trek, he was the hairstylist on the long-running series Murder, She Wrote.
Nice.
Apparently he got some Emmy noms for his work on Deep Space Nine and Murder, She Wrote.
This might just be a deja vu, but I think we might have actually mentioned him before at some point.
It's possible. I don't necessarily remember this. Oh, he was also hairstylist on the film The Blues Brothers.
Ooh.
Yeah. It doesn't say how he died.
Okay. So, man, just the mid-90s, it's a bad time, sad time. Anyway, so tense music plays while Captain Sisko and Major Kira pace down a corridor carrying phaser rifles. Sisko is now bald, and Kira's hair is rocking some nice volume. It's a good old-fashioned changeling hunt, and it seems like the whole staff of Deep Space Nine is involved, including Jones, who is apparently still alive.
Woo!
And we see him many times throughout the episode.
Go Jones.
But is he a changeling?
Could be.
The chase leads them to the promenade, where Bashir crouches next to the mall directory. But that's a bad move, because it turns out the mall directory was the changeling. Odo the changeling, that is. Yes, it's all an exercise. The station is on high changeling alert after the events of the adversary. So I guess they just run these drills where it's like, I guess it's not tag, it's like reverse tag. And Odo
hide and seek.
It. Oh yeah, it's like reverse hide and seek, right? Because hide and seek, one person seeks, everybody hides,
that's
right?
Fair. That's fair. But yeah, so I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense given that when they were on the Defiant and it's like, there's a changeling, they were all just like, oh shit, what do we do? Like, how do we handle this situation? Let's do stupid things. They're still going with the 2-person teams, which I still feel is a mistake. But beyond that, at least they're trying to practice ways of finding changelings.
They're definitely upping their game.
Also, we have the phaser sweeps, which I don't think, we definitely didn't establish in the adversary would do anything. And I'm not sure they actually explain in this episode how they're supposed to do anything.
They just said the phasers, like, they're set to a certain frequency that will hurt the changeling or whatever, right? I think that's all they explained of it in the adversary. But yeah, and Odo's like, hey, remember, like, I can look like something shiny and bright too, so watch out.
Yeah, he's like, I could be a patch of reflective surface, so make sure you don't ever duck down next to anything. And then I don't know how that's supposed to help. Like, if Bashir ducked down next to a wall, Odo also could have been the wall. So,
yeah. So don't go near any walls. Don't go near any floors.
Just stand in the open where they can shoot you.
Just stay away from everything. And then Quark tries to ply Odo with a profit angle, but Odo's not having it. That was not a pitch doomed or destined to fall on receptive ears.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you even try at this point, Quark.
And then Sisko goes off to his date with Cassidy. I've tried to condense this summary down to a manageable length, given that it's a double episode.
Oh yeah, that's a fair point.
So if I gloss over anything important, just jump in and say so. But Sisko's date goes well. They exchange gifts and stuff. Sisko's wearing a great outfit, and we get a little exposition that the Cardassians have sealed their borders. Sadly, though, the date is cut short with the all-too-familiar "Captain, you better come see this" call.
Yeah, that... I would honestly, if I was the captain, start being like, okay, I want you to describe what it is before I come and look.
Right. Or at least give me, like, a urgency on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, something.
Like, if you don't want Cassidy overhearing what it is, that's fine. But, like, give me something. But it seems that the new Klingon flagship has arrived, commanded by a one General Martok. Hey, can my people hang out on Deep Space Nine for a little bit? Says Martok. Totally, come on over, says Sisko. Awesome, says Martok. Then like 500 more Klingon ships decloak around the station. Womp womp, says somebody. I assume.
Yeah, you should have asked for someone to specify
right.
How many there were going to be. So, as all these Klingon ships decloak, there's an interesting note. So, new guy on staff, John Eves, an illustrator. And so, during the hiatus between the two seasons, once they decide to do this episode, they assign him to design a bunch of new Klingon ships. And this was going to be the first episode where all these new Klingon ships appeared. So, he draws a bunch, gets them approved, all this stuff. In the end, none of his designs were included due to budgetary constraints, and the producers instead decided to go with one ship. It's kind of new, because the Negvar was seen in All Good Things. So they had to go and get that model because it was in the middle of a tour as part of Star Trek The Exhibition, which was in Scotland at the time. So they're like, we're going to use that. We got to run and get that model from Scotland so that we can put it in the episode.
Was that like a future Klingon ship?
Yeah, that was like the one that Worf was commanding in the future timeline or whatever.
Gotcha. Huh.
Or cool, someone was commanding. Was it Worf? I don't remember.
I think, I don't even remember. He was on the ship at least, right? And then we get our new, slightly different opening title sequence and music, which spoils that Michael Dorn is now a main cast member of the show, so any conflict he has throughout the episode about leaving Starfleet, don't even pay any attention to that.
Who pays attention to the opening credits?
Did the image look better on this episode on Paramount Plus?
I did not notice.
I don't know. Were they shooting on some better film or something?
It didn't mention anything that I can see.
Or did they just like code it better? I noticed that all the language options were gone.
Huh.
So we can't hear like Morn talk in German anymore or anything like that. But
what a shame.
I don't know if that's just for this episode or going forward. So then O'Brien and Bashir are having a nice time in Quarks, doing some pea flip tricks or something.
Yeah, with sand peas or whatever they're called.
Sure. Gotta entertain yourself. And then Quark comes over to express his unease about the decibel level relative to the number of Klingons in the bar. It's like down in the 30s. We need to get that up to like the 60s at least.
That is the thing that he would notice.
You got the big ears.
This is one of several scenes that are cut out or were cut out when the show was edited into 2 1-hour parts instead of the one big feature length which originally aired.
Yeah. It's not super essential to the plot. The main point is that Quark is suspicious of the Klingons.
So like this one, Dax and Kira in the baths holo program.
Oh sure, you can cut that right out.
And Odo and Quark discussing the defense of his bar and the missing disruptor pistol.
That was a funny scene, though.
I know, I like that one.
Then O'Brien tries to get up to ask the Klingons what's up, but Quark stops him. He's like, "We can't. Don't let them know we're onto them." Down in the conference room, Sisko, Kira, and Martok have a nice little hand-cutting session before Martok gets down to business. He claims that the Klingon High Council is concerned about a Dominion incursion, and I guess they're just going to hang out at the wormhole and wait for the Jem'Hadar to show up, whenever that may be.
Yep, good plan.
Then we get the scene where Dax and Kira hang out in a Trill bathhouse holosuite program, which Kira does not enjoy. And Dax is like, "Hey, loosen up." And then the next morning, I presume, Klingons stalk quietly around the promenade while Odo shows Garrick his fake coffee drinking trick.
It was a good trick.
He's like, "I got this all figured out. Look." He's like, "Whoosh."
I like this note in here that it's like, Garrick and Odo are having breakfast, as suggested in that previous episode.
Yep, totally. Like in, what was it? The Die is Cast, right?
The Die is Cast, yeah.
Garrick seems a little bit disturbed by Odo's trick and changes the subject to the situation on Cardassia. And he's concerned that little information seems to be coming out of the borders. Nothing but rumors. But their pleasant chat is cut short when Odo notices Klingons harassing Morn. This cannot stand. This leads to a tense exchange during which, Odo's like, "Hey, I'm the security guy around here, not you guys, so can you stop doing that?" And then also we learn that Garrick speaks Klingon, which never comes up in the whole rest of the episode.
Yeah, but so there's translations of the various Klingon things in the episode. And so when this guy insults Odo, he says, "Does your mother let you talk to adult men?"
Nice. Good burn. Good burn.
That's when Garrick's like, I don't know that Constable Odo has a mother.
But then Garrick heads back to his shop and is jumped and beaten up by those same Klingons.
So yeah, it's random. Not random, I guess. He insulted them, so they...
Sure.
But apparently, in the novelization of this, it's actually a plot point here, because they have an ulterior motive for, like, jumping Garrick.
Uh-huh.
That's to quietly acquire information on the station's defenses. But
by beating up Garrick?
Well, I guess making Garrick tell them things. I don't know why he would know, but it's like, Garrick, having guessed their plans, had deliberately provoked them into going after him, and had subsequently provided them with out-of-date information on the station to lull them into a false sense of security, which is then later in the episode when Martok's like, no, it's a trick of Duranium shadows and Thoron fields. That's like information gotten from Garrick.
Nice. I mean, that makes way more sense, because even then I was wondering, it's like, what are they hoping to accomplish by this? But in the infirmary, Garrick considers the encounter a victory due to his many cutting verbal barbs that he got out.
It is a great moment where he's just like, no, I'm serious. Like, I'm already healing, but the damage I did to their spirit or whatever will last a lifetime.
Those hurt feelings are going to last a while.
Yep.
But Garrick is confused and intrigued why Klingons would attack him when there's never been significant hostility between Klingons and Cardassians. So he knows something's up here.
And it's interesting as we get into the story of the episode that the Klingons have decided to attack Cardassia, because on any of the maps I could find, and there are some like official ones from, published by Star Trek to give maps and stuff. It's like,
sure,
the Klingon Empire is on one side of the Federation, and the Cardassian Alliance is on the other side of the Federation. So literally they have to cross through Federation territory or go like months out of their way if they want to get from one to the other.
Huh.
So it's a very odd choice to try and conquer, especially if you're then going to like break your alliance with the Federation.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe they're setting up a pincer against the Federation. Because they say, like, if we let the Cardassians attack, or if we let the Klingons attack the Cardassians, they could just attack the Federation next. But up in ops, a distress call comes in from Cassidy's ship. So they all run to the Defiant, take it out, and they find Cassidy's ship being held by Klingons doing a changeling inspection. Can you please not do that in Bajoran space? Says Kira. We happen to have the Fourth Amendment here. And then after everybody does a little bit of flexing, the Klingons back off. But later, Martok storms into Sisko's office and drops a dagger onto the desk, indicating that the Klingon commander who backed down has been executed for disobeying orders.
Sucks to be that guy.
Yep. So, yeah, Sisko's like, okay, I guess this Klingon situation is just going to keep being a problem. I think it's time to start fighting fire with fire, by which I mean Klingons with Klingons. Who do we know who's a Klingon? So we cut to the most awesome shot in Star Trek history, which this is like one of my most remembered shots ever from watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Like, I immediately knew this shot was coming. I think the first time I saw this was as a rerun, and I already knew Worf was on the show. But still, I remember watching this and being like, yeah! So a pair of shoes steps through the docking bay airlock onto the Deep Space Nine carpet, and then the camera tilts up, passing by a familiar sash-draped gold uniform to reveal the man himself. He is greeted by Chief O'Brien and regarded with suspicion by Quark, who says, just what we need, more Klingons.
Well, I don't blame him for thinking that.
Yeah. Also, I like they kind of tried to shoehorn in what Quark is doing at the airlock.
Oh yeah, he's meeting up with another Ferengi and like talking.
Like, a Ferengi guy comes on, he's like, come on.
Let's get out of here. It's freaking Klingons.
So Worf shows up for duty in Sisko's office. And apparently since Star Trek Generations, he's been hanging out in a Klingon monastery. He reveals that he's considering resigning Starfleet, having been an outsider for too long. But plans to hang out on Deep Space Nine long enough to solve this Klingon situation. But Sisko tells him that he once also thought about resigning Starfleet, but knows he would have regretted it if he did. But Worf gets right to work. He heads down to Quark's and orders some prune juice. And there's a great little moment where Quark's like, prune juice? And then Worf's like, yeah, prune juice. Coming right up. O'Brien's there. He introduces him to the rest of the main characters, and we get a series of meet cutes involving throwing the darts too hard and holosuite costumes and mysterious Klingon speaking, which, do you have a translation for what Dax said to him?
Yes, and it is
that scene?
The way that he reacts didn't match the translation in my head, but so okay. Oh, when Martok delivers the Duk-Tog to Sisko, he says, "For you." And then Dax says to Worf, because he says, like, "Oh, you used to be Curzon Dax."
Right.
And she says, "Yeah, but I'm a lot better looking than he was." And then Worf, like, looks kind of over his shoulder or something, and then looks back and goes, "Yeah, I guess so."
Huh. Was she saying she's better looking than he was, or that Worf is better looking than he was?
Dax says, "I'm a lot better looking than he was," as in Curzon.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I might react like that because that's kind of like a weird brag. Like,
I'm better looking than an old man.
It's like, no. I mean, I guess so.
Clearly, it's like a flirtatious thing, and I think maybe Worf's not used to that.
Sure. Yeah, totally. I guess it fits with Worf to be like, oh. Then Worf notices a Klingon being an asshole to Quark. Worf quickly recognizes him as Drex, son of Martok. And then he walks over and introduces himself and just beats Drex up and takes his dagger.
Yeah, well, Drex was an asshole. It's fine.
Yeah. And then Worf heads to his new quarters, starts unpacking, and is soon visited by Martok, who wants Drex's dagger back. There's a great little scene where he's like, "You're insulting my son's honor," and Worf's like, "Your son doesn't have any honor."
Who are you kidding?
But of course this was all a ploy for Worf to get a face-to-face with Martok. But Martok doesn't give up any new information other than he's just following Gowron's orders, and you just need to wait and see what happens. Then Worf goes and gets in some sword practice in what turns out to be Jadzia's program, and Jadzia comes in and they have a nice little sparring session. And then Worf admits his frustration at not being able to get any info from any of his contacts, and Dax is like, "Well, don't you have any, like, friends who owe you a favor?
Or your family a favor, yeah."
Yeah. And then so it turns out there is a dude on the station who owes his life to Worf's dad. So after some drinking and singing, he spills the beans, which we don't see right away. They do the old, "Okay, I'll tell you." Cut.
So there's a translation of the drinking song that they sing.
Ooh, nice.
Which I'm pretty sure comes up later. Like, I seem to remember this song.
Okay.
But the translation is, "And the blood was ankle deep, and the river scrawl ran crimson red on the day above all days, when Kales slew evil Molor dead."
Ooh, metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so Worf goes to the promenade to think things over. Odo comes up, having fully deduced exactly what's going on, and then explains his whole investigation process, as Odo likes to do. And then he tells Worf, "Hey, you better just go tell Sisko whatever you learned, and just later for those conflicting loyalties stuff."
Well, no, I think he was like, "I don't care if you tell Sisko or not, but he deserves to know that you're not going to tell him if you're not going to tell him." Basically.
Okay. Well, yeah, a little okay. Worf does go tell Sisko. Apparently, the Klingons are preparing to invade Cardassia, as they have word there was a coup there, and the civilians have overthrown the military.
Yeah, so I guess that, like, the dissident movement gained some speed after we last saw them.
Yep. I mean, we keep seeing these Cardassian dissidents, so it appears they've had their moment.
Yep.
But the Klingons do not. The Klingons are a little suspicious of the civilians overthrowing the military, and they are worried that Cardassia may now be under the control of the changelings. So Sisko takes this information, goes, confronts Martok, and basically says, "Hey, don't do that." And then Martok is like, "Okay, sure, just let me run that by Gowron." And if he even does that, apparently Gowron doesn't like the idea, because Martok pretty much immediately takes all his ships and heads straight for Cardassia.
Yep, now that word is getting around, they don't want to wait.
Yep. So everybody gathers to figure out the next move. And they're like, "Well, we can't let the Klingons just invade Cardassia. But we also can't warn the Cardassians, because then the Klingons would just consider that an act of war."
Honestly, I'm not sure what they owe the Cardassians at this point. But, I mean, I guess the Bajorans now have a treaty with them, so maybe you could just let the Bajorans tell them? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the logic they mentioned was, this is the part where they were like, once they invade Cardassia, there's nothing to stop them from just, like, attacking the Federation next.
Mm. I don't know that Cardassia was stopping them from doing that, but, whatever.
Yeah. But Sisko's like, what do we do? So we cut to Garrick's shop. He's given Morn some nice wool. Morn gets a lot of play this episode.
Yeah, he's like giving him some wool-lined underpants or something to help keep him warm.
Yeah, but he gets a call. It's like, hey, come to the conference room. Captain Sisko wants to be measured for a suit. I guess the conference room is called the ward room.
Mm-hmm.
So, interesting piece of trivia there. Yeah, Garrick shows up with his tailor kit, and just so happens they're discussing the invasion.
So I knew that wardroom was a thing, but I didn't know what it meant, so I had to look it up. The wardroom is the mess cabin or compartment on a warship or other military ship for commissioned naval officers above the rank of midshipmen.
So it's like where they eat?
Yeah.
So is this room like originally meant to be like a cafeteria for senior officers, and they've just kind of repurposed it?
Well, I guess it says a mess cabin or compartment, so maybe it can also just be the place where they hang out. I don't know.
Garrick figures out what's going on pretty fast. He runs back down to his shop and immediately calls Ducat. I guess Ducat is the only person he can reach, or...
Well, apparently, he reaches the person who's now in charge of something in the new civilian government, because he's like, I was trying to reach somebody in the civilian government. He's like, yeah, that's me.
So you think he just called, like, the civilian government, like, branch line?
Or something. I mean, given that apparently he was unable to contact anyone, it's kind of weird that he suddenly can, but whatever.
Yeah, apparently he just has the phone number for the Cardassian government. He's like, hey, can you route me to whoever's in charge of upcoming Klingon invasions? And then I guess they put him in with Ducat. Okay. Ducat's like, okay, well, thanks for the warning. And then in ops, the crew monitor the progress of the invasion, and it seems that Garrick's warning worked, because eventually the Klingon advance is slowed. But Worf points out that once the invasion has begun, the Klingons will stop at nothing until they achieve victory. And then at that moment, Sisko comes in and announces more bad news. The Federation Council has denounced the Klingons, and so the Klingons have withdrawn from the Khmer Accords. You know, the Star Trek VI thing.
Yep.
So Star Trek VI was all for nothing. Except for, I guess, those 100 years of peace or whatever.
Well, yeah, that was good.
How could you trample the memory of Star Trek VI like this? Remember when the guy who plays Odo tried to assassinate the Klingon Chancellor?
Good times.
Which was a fact I recently learned. Just then, a Klingon ship arrives at the station, carrying none other than Chancellor Gowron. And then he invites Worf onto a ship, and then basically invites Worf to come join the fun in this invasion and settle his Starfleet versus Klingon internal conflict once and for all. But Worf says no. Gowron's like, okay then, well then you're not welcome in the Klingon Empire anymore. And I'm kicking your family off the council and taking all your lands.
Yeah, it's really kind of messed up that he can just do that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Klingon life for you.
Yep.
But yeah, Gowron's like, now you have nothing, and Worf is like, accept my honor. And Gowron's eyes get even wider than they usually are. Worf goes and sulks in Quarks and is joined by Chief O'Brien. They reminisce a little bit. Worf feels that since the Enterprise has been destroyed, the glory days are over, and there's nothing to keep him in Starfleet. Besides, staying on Deep Space Nine would probably put Sisko in an awkward position with the Klingons. Then Quark comes over and just does some general Klingon bad-mouthing, which upsets Worf, and he walks away. So Worf presumably goes to Sisko to resign. Sisko does not accept Worf's resignation, sensing that he may have more need for Worf's services. Then Kira comes in and announces that the Klingons have broken through the Cardassian lines and are just days away from Cardassia Prime, where they will undoubtedly execute the entire government.
Obviously.
And just replace them with their guy. So Sisko calls up Ducat. I guess Garrick gave him, like, the phone number.
Yeah, the number. Sure.
Yeah. He's like, what's the extension for Ducat? Ducat reveals that he is the new military advisor to the civilian government. I guess he pulled some Game of Thrones maneuvers to stay afloat.
Yeah, like, Sisko's just like, so what you're saying is you saw which way the wind was blowing and switched sides. And Ducat's like, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Right.
I just love how, like, shameless he is about it.
Yeah, he's like, kind of wish I could take that back. But yeah, he's little fingering it over there in the Cardassian government. But Sisko and Ducat make some plans to get the government off the planet and into somewhere safe. So Sisko and people, but not Kira and O'Brien, load into the Defiant and head off to meet Dukat. There's a nice little scene where Cassidy gives Sisko a kiss goodbye. Then they cloak and they're on their way, figuring the Romulans probably won't find out, or probably won't care. I think the Romulans honestly won't care, given the circumstances.
Well, I think that knowing the Romulans, they would make some noise about it, but at the same time, they would know that, like, they would never refrain from using the cloaking device in the Alpha Quadrant, even if they'd agreed to it. They would just be more secret about it.
True. They're not going to begrudge the Federation this little bit of sneakiness. On their way, they encounter a field of debris from destroyed Cardassian ships, but opt not to risk stopping and helping any survivors, because they're on an important mission. Finally, they do arrive at the rendezvous, and they find Dukat's ship under fire from the Klingons. And we get this moment where it's like, oh, what do we do? Should we, like, engage the Klingons? And then Sisko gets all dramatic. He's like, we're going in.
I don't know if you noticed the famous tiny continuity gaffe in this section of the episode where when they're on the Defiant, Worf looks all uncomfortable and he's like, I've never been on a Federation ship with a cloaking device. Despite the fact that, yes, the Enterprise did cloak that one time in the Pegasus.
Huh. Maybe he just doesn't remember that or something.
That slipped his mind.
So they engage the Klingons, but they're forced to drop their shields so they can bring out the Cardassian government members, relying on the Defiant's ablative armor for protection.
Which is apparently new.
Yeah, I was like, is this the first mention of the ablative armor?
Like, somebody specifically says, like, our new armor, we're going to see how much damage this new armor can take or whatever. And I was like, oh, I didn't, like, the Defiant having the armor was always just in my brain. I didn't realize that it was, like, not originally there.
And the Worf also suggests a neat tractor beam trick that, I don't know, protects them a little bit. It
works for some reason, but, I mean, it seems like a weird, I don't know.
It's a close call, but they get the council members aboard. And it's a little weird because they're like, it's like, oh my gosh, we only have half the council members aboard. It's like, we're going to need at least another minute. But then it's like the very next scene, they're like, okay, all the council members are aboard. Like, they don't milk that, that suspense at all.
The time here is super compressed because to start with, they're like, oh, we're going to have our shields down for 2 minutes. And I feel like it does not seem like there are any time cuts. And 15 seconds later, it's been 1 minute. Half the council is on board. We need another one. And then like 10 seconds later, okay, they're all on board.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, they might have had to cut down the sequence for time or something. So also, they verify that none of the Cardassians are changelings, which is a pretty smart move.
Assuming that the blood tests are actually working.
Right. But they can't cloak, and they have to rush back home with the Klingons right on their heels. And then we get a nice little scene between Quark and Garrick, kind of talking about their feelings about the Federation and stuff, which culminates in the great root beer scene.
Yeah, it is a great moment.
Quark is like, oh, it's all sweet and bubbly, just like the Federation. And the worst part is, the more you drink it, the more you start to like it.
I love Garrick's reaction when he takes a little sip and he's like, it's foul. But this scene is apparently a big point of contention with this episode.
Oh, really?
So it was added late in the shooting schedule because the episode was coming up a little bit short. So like we need to add in some more stuff. So they added this scene. Episode gets finished. It's now too long. And somebody wants to cut the root beer scene. But Ronald D. Moore is like, no. You can't cut the root beer scene. That's a great scene. Andy and Armin played it so well. Like, this is what Deep Space Nine is all about right here.
Yeah.
But even during the shooting, there's apparently issues where, like, hold on, I gotta find the exact quote here. Okay, yeah, when it came to the root beer scene towards the end of the production schedule, Armin Shimmerman and Andrew Robinson wanted to play the scene with an obvious layer of subtext. But James L. Conway felt that it should be played exclusively for laughs. And so apparently this argument went so long that Ira Stephen Bear had to come down and decide how it was going to be played. And he was like, we're going to go with the subtext idea.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the subtext is kind of built into the text. I don't know how you play the scene without the subtext.
And Armin Shimmerman's on here saying, like, he fought for this because it was this great satisfaction, and it's one of the most popular scenes from Deep Space Nine, because it would have been a totally different scene had we done it the way it was written. So maybe they changed how it was written some. I don't know.
And apparently nobody thought of cutting the Trill bathhouse scene.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's another time where, like, that was one of the ones that gets cut when it's cut into two pieces.
Right.
But apparently Ronald D. Moore once again had to fight to, like, no, don't cut the root beer scene when you're making these extra cuts.
Nice. Yeah, it's a great scene. And I also love the part where Quark is moaning that, I guess now that Cardassia is being invaded, he's never going to sell any Kinara again. And Garrick's like, I'm so sorry about the effect the destruction of my homeworld is having on your business.
It's true.
So the Defiant arrives back at the station, followed closely by the Klingons. And then also a gazillion other Klingon ships show up. And darn it, reinforcements as usual are too far away. So everybody prepares for attack and boarding by the Klingons. So this is where we get such great scenes as Odo talking to Bashir and being like, hey, if a Klingon kills me, I expect nothing short of a full opera about the subject.
Yeah, that was good. Although, like, I feel like, and it comes up later because he keeps dodging, like, their bat'lests and stuff. And I'm like, I don't feel like those should be able to hurt you.
Yeah, there's a scene when, like, a Klingon is, like, swinging a bat'leth at him, and then Bashir shoots him, and then Odo's like, thank you, as if he, like, saved him or something.
Yeah.
I was like, what? That bat'leth wasn't going to hurt you.
If anything, I feel like the Klingons are probably going to be like, oh, that guy is one-on-oneing him. I won't shoot him from far away. That would be, mess up somebody's honor. Right. So I feel like, if anything, like, being in hand-to-hand combat is good for Odo, because he's not going to get shot, and that's probably the thing that could hurt him.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was a little bit weird. And then we also get the great Quark digs out his service pistol from the army thing, and then opens it up, and it's just a note from Rom saying, like, oh, sorry, I borrowed your pistol.
Yes, like, I had to use some parts to fix whatever. I'll get it back to you next week. We have no idea how old that note is, so I'm wondering, but... and it leads to maybe my favorite exchange, where he's just like, Quark's like, I'm gonna kill him, and Odo's like, with what?
Yeah. That was a great line. Oh, and then Garrick also goes to team up with Dukat to protect the council members. So it was a nice little scene between them, enemies fighting side by side. But Martok and Gowron make their final ultimatum. Sisko reveals that he's got 5,000 torpedoes ready to launch. And then Gowron's like, bullshit. And so the attack begins.
Apparently for this scene, because of, how many ships there are, it says that the visual effects guys during this battle scene used Playmates toys, model kits, Hallmark Bird of Prey Christmas ornaments, all in the background. And when one of the toy ships needed to explode, the special effects manager filled it with explosives and party glitter.
Nice. But it's a big, exciting battle on and off the station. Lots of shooting, lots of sword fights. In the end, Deep Space Nine is able to hold on long enough for reinforcements to arrive. And it turns out those 5,000 torpedoes were not a bluff. That was a thread throughout the whole episode, was O'Brien being all happy that they finally were able to get in all these upgrades that he wanted.
Really, it's about time.
Yeah.
That this station got, like, armed in some way. Because before now, it's been pretty crappy.
Yeah. I mean, they spent a whole year waiting for the Dominion to come attack.
Yeah. With, like, no extra anything, apparently. I mean, maybe O'Brien's been working on it all this time and just coincidentally is finished right now, but...
Yeah. Well, I think after the events of The Adversary, I guess Starfleet decided they really need to step up their game. So.
Maybe, yeah.
But Sisko and Worf give a little joint speech to Gowron, a little tag team Star Trek speech, which has the no honor in prolonging a battle if it destroys an empire or something like that. And there's no shame in ending a battle to preserve the empire or whatever.
Oh, we missed some good Klingon in this section. Like,
okay.
There's when they first start attacking and, like, the station starts blowing up their ships, Martok turns to Gowron and apparently says, they fight like Klingons. And then Gowron says, then they can die like Klingons. Destroy their shields, prepare the boarding parties.
Nice.
And then Martok says, I understand. All ships concentrate fire on their shield generators. And then right before the battle Gowron says, "Today is a good day to die," as explicitly translated by Mr. Worf.
Right.
However, this is slightly different from the previous Klingon versions of this phrase, which are usually stated as Heglu mech kach jajvam, instead of, in this episode, Chech chu jajvam jajkak.
Huh. Maybe there's just more than one way to say it, or something like that.
And then when Gowron finally... Right, yeah, maybe. When Gowron at the end of this finally is like, you know what, yeah, there's no shame in like giving up a battle to save an empire or whatever. Martok's like, but Gowron, victory is near.
Right. I thought he said that in English.
Not according to this.
Oh.
You just understand Klingon and didn't realize.
Yeah, I know. I suddenly learned how to speak Klingon. Well, it's bothering me so much I actually have to pull it up now. Luckily, I have the episode already pulled up from when we were talking about it earlier.
While you're looking, apparently it was scripted to be in the episode, but not included in the final version, that Bashir and O'Brien have been participating in a Battle of Britain holosuite program. Which I think that might have been kind of appropriate for this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. He says it in Klingon. I swear at some point he says, he makes that objection in English, but I can't find it, so. I guess I'm just wrong. Mandela effect. So, yeah, Gowron yields for the greater good of the Alpha Quadrant. And then after the battle, Worf gets packing and Sisko shows up at his quarters to give him his discharge papers, but he gives him a nice little, hey, it's better to face your problems than run away from who you really are speech.
Yeah, you don't want to go out to the... Who are the people that he wants to go out and...
It's like the Niberians or something?
Yeah, the Niberite Alliance. Which... I went out and since I had the official maps up anyway, looking at the Klingon and Cardassian situation, I looked for the Niberite Alliance, which is pretty far away.
Yeah.
It's like on the other side of the Federation, and then also like almost exact like the Bajor area is kind of in what looking at this map would be like the northwest corner of the Federation. The Niberite Alliance is you'd have to go to the southeast corner of the Federation. And then you'd have to go past the Tholian Assembly to get to the Niberite Alliance.
Huh. So, yeah. Far away, but I mean, apparently they're always looking for good officers, so.
They are very close to the Klingons, though, so.
I wonder if they pay good.
Maybe.
But yet, Worf, listens to that speech. He's like, okay, I guess you're right. And Sisko's like, awesome, I can totally get you a good posting on a ship. But Worf apparently is just like, actually, do you have any openings? And so thus, Worf joins the crew of Deep Space Nine as the new Strategic Operations Officer.
Wearing red instead of gold.
Yep, he's a red man now.
Yep.
And we learn that the Cardassian government returned to Cardassia Prime, but the Klingons held on to the territory they took. So, it seems that the Klingons are here to stay. But, as Sisko says, so are we.
Maybe.
The end. The very next episode, they leave.
I mean, you are the Federation, and this is a Bajoran station where they're allowing you, while they maybe will at some point put their Federation membership application in. So, yeah. I don't feel like that's a permanent position necessarily.
I don't think the threat of Klingons is going to make the Bajorans less willing to accept Federation help, though. So.
Unless I guess the Klingons give them a good offer to become part of the Klingon alliance, but.
Oh, yeah.
We've kind of established that it seems like you end up second-class citizens in any of these other empires that's not the Federation, because they're all, like, racially whatever. Yeah. Monolithic? Is that? I don't know.
Sure. Like, homogenous.
Yeah, that'll work.
So, I guess, like, yeah, we'll do that if you don't execute all of our government.
Yeah. How about we cut a deal?
So, that's the episode. You got any final stuff?
Yeah, I think there's a few things.
I tried to keep it condensed, but still.
There's a lot of stuff in the episode. It's hard to... Michael Dorn approved of how the Klingons were portrayed in this episode.
Oh, good.
Observing that it made the Klingons what they had originally been created to be by turning them into antagonists again.
So he's all on board for the Klingons are bad guys.
And apparently he also found it a lot easier than he thought of, kind of slipping into... Because he worked with a lot of this same crew on The Next Generation. So it's like, oh, hey, I know you guys.
Huh.
And Okay, we got Alexander Siddig saying this was a landmark for the actors because we all met Michael Dorn for the first time on our show. We all got the chance to work with Michael on that one. It was great fun. Once we got going with Worf being there and settled down, we realized it wasn't going to be such a nightmare and that everything was probably going to be terrific. So the implication there that before that they were worried that it was going to be a nightmare.
So what's the, what do they say about Family Matters that when like Steve Urkel came along, it like became a nightmare for the whole rest of the cast?
Yeah, I believe that.
So they avoided a Steve Urkel situation.
They did.
If that story is true.
He says, we all enjoyed that one, and I particularly liked Chief O'Brien's line about liking the look of Worf in red. It was such an unusual line, and made me think that maybe O'Brien has a new sartorial eye that we never noticed before. All right, okay. If you say so.
Wait, who said that? Colin Meaney?
Yeah, no, like this was still Alexander Siddig talking.
Oh, okay. So he's just making these observations about Chief O'Brien.
Yeah. He's like, man, I think maybe Chief O'Brien knows clothes. Yeah. Gonna get a job in Garrick's tailor shop or something.
It's like Alexander Siddig is always trying to push the show to a tailor-based show.
Apparently, during the big fight, as you can imagine, like they don't want to have to dress up more people as Klingon than they need. So in that huge fight scene, the hand-to-hand fight scene, there's only a few stuntmen. Uh-huh. They just get reused whenever like the camera moves around to shoot a different area.
Nice. I mean, it looked like a lot of Klingons to me, so.
In one scene, a security officer played by stunt actress Leslie Hoffman says, "Thanks." The voice was added in post-production using another voice than Hoffman's. Information provided by Leslie Hoffman.
Nice. She's like, hey, that's not my voice.
That guy who made all the different designs for new Klingon ships, one of them did get picked up and used in Enterprise later on, so It wasn't totally wasted.
Nice. I mean, I assume he at least got paid, right?
Yeah, I think he must have. Okay, so Robert Hewitt Wolf says about the action that the action in this episode appeals to the 13-year-old boy in all of us.
Sure.
What makes me proud of this episode is that we managed to find the time to do something nice for every character in the series. Everybody got a moment or two that was true to their characters. This was fun and exciting as a showcase for all of our characters, not just a new introduced one.
I agree with that.
Ira Stephen Bear says this was a really strong start to the season, had all the typical Deep Space Nine stuff. Like, the episode's initial airing took place after the news was leaked that Michael Dorn would be reprising his role on Deep Space Nine. They make it sound like this news leaked out and they're like, oh, we better get this on the air, quick! Yeah.
Oh, crap.
A lot of stuff in here, but not all of it's terribly interesting, so...
I guess we can jump into ratings.
Yeah, sure. What do you want to call this one?
Well, first, okay. It's time to get into ratings, but first let's do the title review. I think this is a good place to do the title review at the beginning of the ratings. How do you rate this title, The Way of the Warrior?
I mean, it sounds like a Klingon-y thing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know that there's anything in it that feels like this is the way of the warrior to me. But it makes sense for what it, like... I know what this is talking about when you say this the episode of Deep Space Nine, The Way of the Warrior. I'm like, oh, that's that one with all the Klingons and Worf shows up. Like, it's not one of those that I have no idea what you're talking about when you say it. So I'm okay with it. I don't think it's amazing or anything, but I think it's okay. Yeah,
I mean, my note is like, it's just one of those titles that's like, it could be any Klingon-centered episode, but how much better could they really do other than call it like the one where the Klingons invade Cardassia or just like enter Worf or something.
See, this one could have been like the Dogs of War to me or something.
Ooh.
Or something that's implying like that war is coming because a war of some kind of almost starts here. I don't know if you consider there to be an active state of war between the Cardassians and the Klingons after this, but there's like the breaking of the treaty with the Federation. So but anyway, so it could be like, something that is prescient of war approaching.
Actually,
like, something like that.
Isn't there a Cardassian novel about a war against the Klingons?
Oh, there is. Hold on, yeah. Yeah. Meditations on a Crimson Shadow, set in the future concerning a war between the Cardassians and the Klingons.
Okay, so yeah.
Sure. That would have been great, actually.
Yeah.
I would have loved that. That just sounds so dramatic. And the people who had a really good memory of these things would know exactly what the title meant.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, it might be a spoiler for the diehard Deep Space Nine fans.
It would, but I feel like if you're that diehard, that the spoiler's not even going to upset you as much as like them giving you this reference that only you get. Like I feel like you're gonna appreciate that.
I mean, maybe they could have had like a quick little like shot of Garrick or Bashir or somebody reading Meditations on a Crimson Shadow.
Yeah, like Garrick is trying to convince Odo to read it now since Bashir didn't like it or something.
Yeah,
during their breakfast.
So yeah, missed opportunity there, I think.
1995. I'm here if you need some advice.
Although the episode, it wasn't a very meditative episode, but still.
I mean, Worf apparently came from where he was meditating a bunch.
Oh, true. Okay, so into the real ratings.
Yeah. What would you call The Way of the Warrior?
Okay, so first of all, you know how they have movies that are like, they call them Oscar bait?
Yes.
I feel like this episode is Captain Bait.
All right.
I could talk about the many great character scenes, the exciting space battles, just the epic scope of the episode, but it really just comes down to one thing. Worf. We got Worf. He's full on Worf. I love Worf. Captain.
Okay.
What do you think?
They call out in these notes that this is what they feel like the beginning of Worf becoming a more interesting character.
Yeah, other than the guy who just continuously gets told to shut the fuck up all the time.
Well, and the thing is, it's part of what was, and I love The Next Generation, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it's part of what was wrong with like Gene Roddenberry's philosophy that they had to carry through The Next Generation, that you're not allowed to have conflict between the main characters because they've grown out of that sort of thing in the future. Like, it's hard to give somebody like interesting interpersonal relationships if they're not allowed to have conflict with the people who are close to them. And so Worf has gotten this sort of like, am I Klingon? Am I in the Federation thing before?
Uh-huh.
But it's always seemed a little pat the way that they worked it out.
Yeah.
And so this is opening the door to letting Worf be less comfortable, letting Worf be more, like letting this conflict really come to the surface more in Worf, which I appreciate. So it's not only that we brought Worf over here and I love Worf, it's that we are going to do some things that like let Worf grow where he couldn't before. And so that's already obvious from just the first episode that he's in. And in addition to that, I mean, whoever said it, Irish Season Bear, whoever was right, everybody gets something in this episode. Even like Quark and Garrick are getting some great moments.
Right.
So this is just an all around really good episode. And it's shaking things up with, you know, the stuff with the Klingons, the stuff with the Cardassians. I like it a lot. I think that story-wise and character-wise, it's doing a lot of really great things. And on top of that, you're throwing in the cool battle scene where finally we're allowing Deep Space Nine to stand up for itself and blow some people up, which is great.
Right.
So yeah, there's very little that I find bad about this episode. I also have to give it a Captain.
Yeah. And you're right. It's like in this episode, we kind of see Worf having to make a real tough decision. And there's no weaseling out of it. Like, he has to face the consequences for that decision. Although you might argue that the Kira Dax bathhouse storyline is maybe a little weak, but
I even like that. I like the way that, because we've established in the past, Kira doesn't like the holodeck.
Right.
Jadzia is a big fan of any sort of relaxing. They're friends. We're getting to see some of their friendship, which we haven't gotten to see much of before now, honestly.
True.
So we're developing this relationship between them where Kira is very buttoned up. Kira doesn't have an imagination because she wasn't allowed to have an imagination as a child because of the life that she led.
Right.
And Dax, who is big on imagination, is trying to push her out of her comfort zone. And then beyond that, even, I like that. I love the moment where they come down the stairs and she's furious because Lancelot tried to kiss her and she's a married woman. Like, that is just a terrific reference, and then allows Worf to be like, nice hat, as he tries to find something nice to say to the first officer of the station the first time he meets her. So I loved it.
I was just like, Worf, he's been a merry man before. He sympathizes.
It's true. He gets it.
I also like the part where like Kira tries to ask the holographic hunks to leave. And then Dax is like, "What, are you worried about hurting their feelings?"
That's true.
Or no, Dax asked them to leave and Kira... Anyway. But yeah, you're right. I guess like we've gotten a lot of tell, not show with the Dax and Kira relationship before. So I guess it is good to see them kind of like actually hanging out, doing something social, recreational.
Yeah.
Got any final thoughts before we cut it off?
We're off to a good start this season.
Yep.
So hopefully we're going to keep it up.
That's totally the thing I forgot to bring up on our review of season 3 is how did you feel of season 3 compared to seasons 1 and 2?
I mean, season 3 started off really strong. I feel like maybe it kind of like was chasing its tail a little bit at some points in the middle. Not all points, because there was some good stuff in the middle, but at several points. And then I feel like it ended pretty strong with like not just the finale, but like, the Dies Cast 2 episodes section there. So I felt like, as opposed to the previous seasons, which sometimes started and ended strong also, but were really in a lot of senses. Season 2 stepped it up above season 1. Season 3 stepped up even further.
Sure.
And now we're starting higher than ever at the beginning of season 4. So it's really, it's nice.
It's kind of like shifting gears, I guess. Like we keep shifting that gear up.
Yep.
Trying to hit that top gear. I thought I'd bring that up because I forgot to mention it last time. I really need to do some analysis of our ratings and to see if they bear any of the stuff out. Like make a little histogram of like ratings, but that sounds like too much work. So
I was going to say you could run some statistical analyses, but you'd need like additional data points. Like, is this a Kira episode? Is it a Cisco episode? Yeah. Or like who all appears in this episode, and see like we tend to rate episodes way higher when Garrick is in it, and we'd both be like, well, yeah, that's not a surprise in any way. So okay.
Yeah, it would have to be some like deep data mining and just who has time for that? But yeah, like, I guess we can call the episode there before I have to spend forever editing it. So
okay,
yep, looks like it's about time for us to sign off. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. Don't forget to check the description. Maybe something interesting in there, or maybe not. But I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
Adios.
And until we meet again, don't forget to kiss the Nega stick. No. Keep the blood wine warm and the prune juice chilled.